Humans are known to be the first civilization on Earth. But are you sure about that? Are we egocentric enough to think that we were the only civilization? Well, let me tell you that there are certain theories that question everything you know. Do you want to know what they are? So my old sports, this is EdDevelop, where you will find the best scientific and similar curiosities. Subscribe and activate the notification bell to enrich your day every time we upload a new video, and consider our Patreon. Find the link below in the description. Now, it is time for the fun parts. Complex life has existed on our planet for at least 400 million years. As a species, however, we only managed to create an industrial civilization about 300 years ago. But what if an earlier industrial civilization existed on Earth millions of years ago? If so, how could we prove or disprove it? This is the end of the Silurian hypothesis, a fascinating thought experiment that appeared in a 2018 study published in the International Journal of Astrobiology. Homo sapiens appeared on Earth about 300,000 years ago. In the unlikely event that such an ancient industrial civilization existed, it would predate the species to which we all belong. At the time, Schmidt dubbed the idea the Silurian hypothesis, in homage to the sophisticated reptilian humanoids awakened from 400 million years of hibernation by nuclear testing in a 1970s episode of the British science fiction television series Doctor Who. The authors of the study decided to focus on the period between 4 million years ago and 400 million years ago. What do you think of this theory, old sports? If you want to learn more about this interesting study, why don't you like the video and share it with someone who also loves this kind of curiosity? Let's move on. The history of mankind is but a speck of dust in the vast creation of the world we inhabit today. Since about 6,000 years ago, countless human civilizations have passed through it. Those known as mother civilizations, i.e., those characterized by their autonomous and authentic origins, such as Mesopotamia, Egypt, Peru, India, China, and Central America, are so called because the later civilizations received cultural loans from them in order to constitute themselves as such. But what are the characteristics that define a civilization? First of all, it must be historical. That is, its citizens must use writing to record their laws, religion, and political power, kings, states, as well as to perpetuate the memory of their past based on calendars or events based on specific dates in time. For example, the first official written document dates back to 1750 BC and is the famous Code of Hammurabi or Law of Talion. Did you know it? It is of Mesopotamian origin. So we could say that historical humanity is only 4,000 years old. Almost nothing if we look back at the geological, biological, and astronomical times of our planet. So let's talk about our footprint on Earth. There is no civilization or collective human progress without a direct and observable impact on the ecological system, as well as without energy extraction. But here's a question of great importance in the scientific community. How do we know that we are the only civilization that has ever existed on our planet? Maybe humans weren't the first. This is the question that Gavin Schmidt, director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, GISS, and Adam Frank, professor of astrophysics at the University of Rochester, have been exploring for years. It is unbelievable to think that scientists of such high repute could be studying this kind of theory. Although when we think about the beginning of the world, anything is possible, right? It all started when he began to study global warming from an astrobiological perspective. This led him to analyze the results of the industrialization of any civilization before ours, observable in the impact on the climate. But you're surely wondering how this is possible. I'll tell you how. Just as our current era of overpopulation and industry is leaving a clear and obvious imprint on the geology and biology of our planet, so too could previous civilizations. Based on this premise, Schmidt and Frank have studied the possible consequences on climate and nature that a hypothetical industrialized society that preceded the one we live in today could have had. So, based on the study of these two incredible connoisseurs of the subject, let's see what they base this theory on. Building a civilization means harvesting energy from the planet to do a job, says Adam Frank in an article published in The Atlantic. In other words, there is no human progress without an immediate and observable impact on the ecological system. To build and maintain a civilization, energy must be extracted to keep it going. Thus, the first human communities on Earth found everything they needed to live in the natural exploitation of the land, and their economy was based on the primary sectors of agriculture and animal husbandry. Later, they would introduce trade, but that is another story. Despite their minimal technological development, the first civilizations on Earth carried out a number of essential tasks to survive in an environment that had a greater or lesser impact on the planet. We're used to imagining extinct civilizations with sunken statues and subway ruins. These kinds of artifacts from earlier societies are only useful if you're interested in small timescales. But once you turn the clock back to tens or hundreds of millions of years, things get more complicated. This again highlights the short time we have been on Earth compared to the long history of our planet and all its species. Today's civilization is leaving traces that scientists may be able to detect for up to the next 100 million years. When it comes to finding direct evidence of an industrial civilization that preceded ours, such as cities, factories, and roads, the geological record offers no records beyond the Quaternary period, 2.6 million years ago, the professor analyzes. If you go back far beyond the Quaternary, there is nothing left. Everything has turned to dust. This means that, scientifically speaking, there are no visible traces of civilizations before our arrival on Earth. This is where the question ends. Since all direct evidence of our arrival on the planet would be erased after many millions of years, what evidence could there be of earlier communities? The best way to answer this question is to find out what evidence we would leave behind if our civilization collapsed at its current stage of development, which is right now. The material that will outlive us all will be plastic, which will persist at the bottom of the oceans for geological timescales. And many of these atoms are now roaming the surface of the planet as a result of human activity. They will also appear in sediments, as will synthetic steroids, which will be detectable in geological layers 10 million years from now. As you can see, the productive hand of man will be perfectly reflected as an appearance or X-ray of our passage on planet Earth many years after we are gone. The material that will outlive us all may be the plastic that is found in enormous quantities at the bottom of the oceans. Wind, sun, and waves wear down plastic elements on a large scale, leaving the oceans full of microscopic particles that end up at the bottom of the ocean, creating a layer that can persist over geological timescales, Frank warns. In the end, we can see the practical impossibility of resolving the question of whether there were industrialized societies before ours. The more you recognize the need to find low-impact energy sources to slow climate change, the smaller your footprint will be. Then, the more sustainable your civilization becomes, the smaller the footprint you leave for future generations. The Silurian hypothesis contains an oxymoron. The more sustainable a society is in the way it generates energy and produces resources, certainly the more advanced a society is, the smaller footprint it leaves on the planet. Although this theory has been debunked, there are others who claim that there is evidence in our history of the passage of other civilizations on Earth. Another such theory is that of the ancient astronauts, which emerged in the mid-20th century and holds that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in the past and were responsible for the origin and development of human cultures, technologies, and religions. In other words, most or all of the deities of religions, many of which come from the sky, are in fact aliens that our ancestors would have misinterpreted due to their limited knowledge of the galaxy, and their technologies would have been taken as evidence of their divine nature. How do they maintain this? Many people say that various figures carved in the rocks of ancient civilizations could be the key to this discovery, which could be called a footprint of them. What do you think about this? There are countless theories about the origin of our civilization and how the first ones were able to build an entire political, mathematical, and even astrological system. Do you want us to talk about these theories? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. My old sport, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. See you next time.